Well, it's interesting. There are those in the world today that are saying that we actually have two brains. One of them is in our heads, and the other one's located in the heart. And they're doing all kinds of, Heart Math Institute's doing some great work in that arena if you haven't looked at it. And they're measuring energy potentials and such of the literal physiological expression that we call the heart. And if you go back into the ancient Aramaic, you remember that they said, take care of the heart. Now, my take of that would be, when they were saying that in the Aramaic, that word heart was not representing the physical organ or anything to do with what we today call the heart, but rather they were talking about what's going on in the unconscious mind, what we hold out of awareness. In the ancient Aramaic, there's a code word they used, that was the heart. So take care of the heart. Take care of what's unconscious in you, because they're the energy patterns that end up becoming the issues in your life. That's what contributes to hostile and fearful constructs in the mind. That's what sets up the energy fields that draw people in to play out patterns that you might otherwise want to avoid. And there's why the key tool of forgiveness is so important, because it's a way to get out of your head into your heart, a way to access what's hidden in the mind, the unconscious aspect of self, and by bringing it forward in the presence of love, to dissolve it, to remove it from your structure, to create a transmutation energy that removes negative dynamics and leaves you with a whole different experience of yourself and what's going on in the world around you. So take care of the heart. Take care of the unconscious. For that's where the power is accumulated. Out of it, they said, are the issues in life. The reason for that is because we've created such a powerful, unnatural condition through denial, through the wish that we could pretend that everybody else is the problem in our lives, that the source of the real problems, literally our own hearts, our own unconscious minds, we tend to hide from ourselves. And of course, when we hide them from ourselves, the simple act of hiding means I have to push on it. If I push on it, I just added energy to it. Every energy, by definition, energy is motion, and everything that is in motion creates an energy wave, creates results. The harder I push on something. Imagine that I've got a 3-foot diameter spring that stands 3 feet high. It's sitting there on the floor. Can it do anything? Absolutely not. But what happens if I push down on it and put the lock on it? I push down on it again and again and again and again, and each time I lock it down and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. What happens when I let the lock off? Kaboom! It's going to fly. All of that potential energy held in abeyance all of a sudden cuts loose. Well, in a similar way, when we live in the game of denial, and that word deny being to think or speak as though something outside of us is the cause of what's moving inside of us, we're instructing the mind, which is an evidential device, that we're really not interested in the truth. We're really not interested in seeing our part in what's going on, but rather we want the mind to make it up that it's all about somebody else. And so out of the hidden dynamics in the mind, we generate constructs, perceptions, and if the mind's been given instructions to blame somebody else, and the recognizing that the nature of the human mind is evidential, then with the instruction that this is your fault, the mind builds me a construct showing me out of my own internal dynamics that whatever is going on in my life is your fault. And through that action, we literally create what's called an unconscious mind. Because in order to believe that you're the cause of what's moving in me, I, of course, have to hide what's moving in me. The objective of the forgiveness process is to bring whatever's hiding in me to awareness and to empower people to work through those dynamics. So to do something different than living in this game of blame and it's all everybody else's fault. When one plays the blame and the fault game, they're engaging in an energy quality that is disintegrative in nature. And that means that as long as we're engaging in a disintegrative energy, we're engaging in an energy that assaults the tissue structure that's made for love, and through that assault, by bringing a discordant energy into tissue, we create discordant structures within our physiology. We call them diseases. The objective of forgiveness is to uncover any unconscious dynamics in your life or any time in your bloodline. Any time that denial has ever occurred and has never been resolved and involves goals, those energetic patterns are stored within the genes and passed from generation to generation to generation. You remember in the Aramaic, they said the sins of the fathers. And remember now, be careful you don't get into the Greek idea of sin. That's just an archery term. It means off the mark. It doesn't have anything to do with the whole Greek concept of sin. It's just an energy that's off the mark. But when they said the wages of sin is death, they were talking about how physiology works. If you put a disintegrative energy into your tissue structure, then your tissue structure is going to experience the effects of that disintegrative energy. And that means disease, suffering, and if it goes on long enough, ultimately death. You might remember there's another ancient quote from those ancient scriptures that said that with man, death began. We made the process of death up. How did we do that? By living in denial. By thinking and speaking that whatever's moving in us is caused by someone else, thus creating dis-ease conditions within the tissue structure and setting up energy fields that draw people in to play out those dis-ease energies. What forgiveness does is it, and we talked about this the other day, that it opens the veil of the temple. You remember when they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, torn in two? They weren't talking about a purple curtain in a church. They were talking about the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. That's the veil of the temple. It's unnatural for us to have an unconscious. Whenever we're in upset and disturbance, pain, trauma, and we're looking outside of ourselves, we're hiding something in our own unconscious minds. And our minds will show us a world of false pictures where everybody else is the problem. So once again, the objective of forgiveness is to rectify that game, step back into a life and into a world where you get to live truly as love, truly as a human being, and by so doing, function as the presence of love. Freeing yourself from energetic dynamics within yourself or within your relationships where hostility and fear have a place. And recognizing that if stored in your heart there's some form of hostility or fear, allowing that hostility or fear to surface through forgiveness is a way of accessing the hidden dynamics and processing those energies out of the structure. That's the bottom line of this work. So, Miss Jeannie, did you have another section that you wanted to read to us?
Well, I can continue reading. She was just asking me something, so I kind of was sidetracked there for a moment, but I can continue reading. Let me see. Nobody's got a hand up. So whatever you think.
Go for it.
Okay. Just a second, sweetie. I'm going to read some more. So this is very important to better understand what it's like to have these energies stored within you. Let's first examine what it would be like if nothing was stored. What if everything just passed right through you? For example, when you're driving down a highway, you probably pass thousands of trees. They don't leave impressions on you. They're gone as soon as they are perceived. While you're driving, you see trees, you see buildings, you see cars, and none of these make lasting impressions on you. There's just a momentary impression that allows you to see them. Though they do come in through the senses and make impressions upon your mind, as quickly as the impressions are made, they are released. When you have no personal issues with them, impressions process freely. This is how the overall system of perception is meant to work. It's meant to take things in, allow you to experience them, and then let them pass through, so that you're fully present in the next moment. While this system is in a working operative state, you are fine and it is fine. You're simply having experience after experience. Driving is an experience. Trees passing by are an experience. And cars passing by are an experience. These experiences are gifts that are being given to you like a great movie. They are passing into you, awakening and stimulating you. They are actually having a profound effect on you. Moment after moment, experiences are coming in and you're learning and growing. Your heart and mind are expanding and you are being touched at a very deep level. If experience is the best teacher, there's nothing that comes close to the experience of life. What it means to live life is to experience the moment that is passing through you and then experience the next moment and then the next. Many different experiences will come in and pass through you. It's a phenomenal system when it's working properly. If you could live in that state, you would be a fully aware being. That is how an awakened being lives here in the now. They're present, life is present, the wholeness of life is passing through them. Imagine if you were so fully present during each experience of life that it was touching you to the depth of your being. Every moment would be stimulating, moving experience because you would be completely open and life would be flowing right through you. But that's not what happens inside most of us. Instead, it's more like you're driving down the street, here come the trees, come the cars, and it's all passing right through you with no trouble. Then inevitably, something comes in that doesn't make it through. There was this one car, a light blue Ford Mustang that looked like your girlfriend's car. But as it passed by, you noticed two people hugging in the front seat. At least it looked like they were hugging, and it sure looked like your girlfriend's car. But it was a car just like all the other cars, wasn't it? No, it wasn't just like all the other cars to you. Do you want me to stop there, or you want me to keep on?
Well, let's stop on that idea and look at the idea that of reality once again. That in the example that he's using, gee, it looks like quote unquote my girlfriend's car. What does that mean? That means that brain cells are resonated in me that might put all kinds of meanings into something as simple as a car driving down the road. And if there's disturbance, if there's upset, gee, there's somebody hugging in the car and it's my girlfriend, and oh my gosh, and what kind of dynamics might go on from the unconscious part of the mind. The objective with this work is to remove all dynamics in the mind that could possibly hold any form of hostility or fear, and to align every aspect of this body-mind unit with the state of being that we were created in, which is love. So that everything that is unlike love is faced, brought forward, if it's of a disintegrative nature, if it's based in some form of hostility or fear, then bringing the root of it forward through forgiveness, so that through exposure to love, any untoward energetic dynamics held in the mind can be dissolved. As long as those dynamics are held in the unconscious, are held hidden, oh, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to feel with that, I don't want to deal with that, then anything that resonates that particular set of brain cells into activity is going to tend to strengthen the content of the mind. Where the objective here is, if it's based in hostility or fear, to weaken the content of the mind so that the mind has no interpretation of events based in hostility or fear. Achieving a state of serenity through all experiences rather than disturbance that the average person blames on somebody outside of them. Why are you upset? Oh, because of what such and such did, or such and such said, or what's going to happen, what happened yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's happening today. What would life be like if it simply were not possible to step into a space where there's any form of hostility or fear still unresolved within the mind? That what comes forward naturally is simply confidence, awareness, and the presence of love. I'd offer that's what a human life is designed to look like. But because we tend to come from generations and generations and generations, you look at that story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, and you realize that it's not a story about a hot, standy place, but the desert is a code word for the unconscious. And the average person tends to, in our culture, spend usually about 40 years or so kind of wandering around, wondering which end is up, and why is this happening to me again, or why are they doing this to me again, and it's all somebody else's fault. By collapsing, which is what forgiveness does, the hostility and fear-based content of the unconscious mind, transmuting the unconscious content based in any form of hostility or fear, one is freed from those unconscious dynamics. A whole different game ensues, a whole different process. At that point, every event in life becomes an event based in the dynamics of sweetness, the dynamics of love, and the need to, which so many people do, to run away. You look at how much alcohol and drug use and junk food and sugar and caffeine and nicotine there is in our culture. And each of those things is a signal that someone's trying to run away from something, trying to escape something. What if we lived as human beings and we're just right there to embrace whatever comes next? How different would the game of life be? We're here to make that understanding available in its simplest form and support people in, quote unquote, taking care of their own unconscious, the heart, and exiting living in an unconscious mode and moving into what's really possible. If you look into the ancient scriptures, they spoke about this place called the desert, and then the alternative to that was what was called the promised land. Is that a physical place? No. It's living from a space where, with no unresolved hostility or fear in you, you live in confidence, you live in conscious, creative mode, bringing about those results that you would like to be bringing about in your life. So the promised land, again, isn't a place, it isn't some geographical location, but it is the result of one doing the work of healing, the work of forgiveness, the work of removal of generations of hostility and fear, and becoming aware of one's function, consciously, purposely creating what happens in their lives, as opposed to always looking for something out there that's the problem. And if you're out there in listener land and this conversation is making sense, or something about it isn't making sense, or something about it needs to be clarified, or you simply have a question about anything that we're doing with this work, the call-in number for the show, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, is 563-999-3581, 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you're listening to the show. And then, if you want to have a conversation, push 1, and that raises a hand in the control panel. Jeannie will introduce you by your area code, and we'll be having a conversation. And I'd love to have a conversation with you. So push 1, let's say hello. What's on your mind? How goes your process? Miss Jeannie, do we have anything happening in the chat room or anything happening in the phone queue? Okay. Jeannie tells me that we've got a problem. I don't know if you can hear me or not. She said I had disappeared. So she's dialing back in, and if that resolves the problem, great. Otherwise, I'll dial back in as well. So, Miss Jeannie, can you hear me?
Okay. I've got 2 hands
You're
up,
loud and
so
clear,
let's
sweetie.
see. Okay, good. It's probably just my phone. So we've got 2 hands up. Let's see who we got. 520, you're on the air. Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hey there, young lady. How are you?
Well, I don't know. I wanted to explain an experience. And the other day I was calling cards. Okay, it's an experience. I had a deck of cards in my hand. I was calling cards. Right? And I put the one card down, and I said, King of, I'm going to make up one. I know it was a king. I said, King of the suit, spades. Okay, I'll just say spades. King of spades. And my friend in the group said, Audrey, that's a 7 of diamonds. I looked at it. I said, okay, King of spades. She said, Audrey, that's a 7 of diamonds. I purposely got near the card, looked at it again, called the same thing. She said the same thing. And then she said, Audrey, focus, look. It's a 7 of diamonds. I looked, and it was a 7 of diamonds. And then I started laughing. Michael, please explain what's happening to my friend.
Well, my goodness. Well, not having been there, I'm not sure, Audrey.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
Perception is a construct of the mind. So, I mean, in a state of hypnosis, we can tell someone to see something that clearly is not there or is the opposite of what's there. I don't know, where you focus for some reason on the king and having that focus, is that what your mind literally generated as a picture? I don't know.
Okay, well,
not sure how I would explain that one.
All right, well, I'll just have fun with it, and thank you very much, and looking forward till the next caller's question. Thank you, Michael.
All right, young lady. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Blessings.
Okay, our next caller is a voice from the past. We haven't heard from Doug in a long time. 314, you're on the air.
Well, welcome, young
Hello
man.
there.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Awesome.
Good
Where
to
are
hear-
you in
hear-
St. Louis?
I'm in St. Louis. Yes, I am.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening in your world? What's exciting? What's on your mind today?
Well, what's happening in my life is I'm doing a pretty good job of just staying as connected as I can to the flow of life and the divine, and that's very helpful. And sometimes what comes up for me is still grief or sadness about, I've been extremely attached to this relationship. And basically we are, it's a very interesting thing because I helped her up there with things. She came down here, helped me a little. I went back up there, helped her some, and in that process got all my things back here. And we did a lot of harvesting about a relationship, a lot of very growthful understanding, and very delicious expansion of understanding of things. I thought we actually got together after 3 or 4 months apart to start that, which I just explained, by going to Harbin Hot Springs in California, and now we have no scheduled plans to engage, but we talk most every day, and so that's the latitude of it. And I was listening to an audio that I made to myself mostly that ended up flowing into a conversation with her that was also on the recording in 2021. And what I noticed when I listened to it is how I kept saying to myself in the first part of that how she was the most important thing in my life. I wanted her to be the most important thing in my life. I was trying to make her the most important thing in my life. And I have felt that way. And so what I'm calling for is sort of the next step in clarity or process, because I recognize when I listen to that I can't possibly be happy, really, feel content in a way, I don't think. It's like recognize that making her the most important thing in my life, which I did for a good reason, because in the past, too often I've left relationships for like some idea that there's something better somewhere else. And in this case, I was determined not to do that. And it was a conscious choice to make her the focus of my life, the love of my life, and I did all of that. But part of the doing of it also became a trap, because she was moving away from me the last 3-4 years, and I feel like right now what I'm looking for is how to see all of that. Then whatever it is, I'm not really asking a very specific question here, but it's like I see that making her, and she had said it to me before, that she couldn't be the most important thing in my life. And I would say, yeah, under God, but I get that much, but it was actually too much. It was like not something she wanted to be. But for me, it was part of how I thought I could be most valuable in her life, by making her the most important and most valuable. So I'm just seeing that, just seeing how much that was a trap for me in so many ways, and now kind of trying to do with my emotions still further, which I do great when I really connect with God. And then at other times these emotions come up, the unconscious comes up, and I'll have an hour or two of feeling a lot and, still going through that. Because it's sort of a dilemma for me, I've said an awful lot here without letting you say anything, and I have a habit of doing that. But the dilemma is I can't really find happiness, I don't think, as long as I keep making her that important when she doesn't want to be that in my life. And so I'm just open to ideas and thoughts. That's enough talking from me, I think.
Okay. Well, what I hear you saying...
How to...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, what I hear you saying is that the cause of the support, the source of your happiness, is outside of you. And
Yep.
My offering would be that's got to be the biggest fraud that ever existed.
Yep.
That if you put that outside of you, then you just put a block in your mind, an attachment, right? What I hear you keying into is attachment here. And that attachment then is going to be the thing that blocks you from tapping into who you really are as a human being, which is where the real source of fulfillment is.
Yeah, and that is what I feel when I am in my better states, more now than ever. It's like I can do that. And then these other patterns are still in there. And this is a great insight, just saying it like you did, source of happiness outside of self. That's like, yeah, I can sure see that. And yet I guess it's a curiosity for me. How does one become really, truly, deeply committed to one individual, no matter what? How does one do that in an appropriate way?
Yeah, for me, the first step is, do I show up as wholeness or do I show up as need? If you have two people who show up in a relationship as need, chances are that relationship is not going to be very fulfilling. But to me, the first order of business is, do I show, well, oh yeah, I've got work to do. Yes, I'm going to have to work through some things, but do I show up whole, or am I showing up expecting someone else to fulfill what's missing in me? And until I really come into the experience of myself as who I am, as the created essence of love, that's the only source of love that anyone's ever going to experience. The other stuff is basically just fake. So when I show up whole, ready to extend and share my wholeness, then I can create, real commitment and real relationship. I don't know if you've ever been in an intensive, with all the intensives you've done over the years, where we've done the cutting of attachments. Do you remember the experiment or the exercise that we do for cutting attachments?
I don't believe I do. It's not coming to mind.
Okay. So as long as I have unconscious attachments to someone, I'm going to tend to take whatever's unresolved under those attachments, and that's going to keep bringing interference into my life. And if I say to myself, well,
I don't think I comprehend that as deeply as I want, what you just said.
Okay.
As long as I have attachments, I'm going to tend to take whatever's unconscious and what? I didn't quite comprehend that. That seemed important to me.
So if I hold a belief that I can't be whole without you, then I'm going to be attached to you, and that attachment is what's going to block me from being whole. I don't show up as a whole human being if I think you've got what makes me fulfilled.
Yep, got that. Okay, like a little circle there. Yep. Okay.
And so by cutting the attachments, the emotional strings that tend to keep that pattern going, I get to look at what lies underneath it that holds this belief that I'm not whole without you. Can I be whole without you? Can you be whole without me? And can we say, okay, now let's go play together? That's a different game than, well, half of me's here and I need you to be the other half so that I can feel whole. That's always going to lead to frustration, and what's going to show up is the unresolved part of me that's holding me out of wholeness.
Clearly, and I'm sure that there is probably, well, I'm sure there is dynamic of that going on. It might, maybe that's exactly what I need to more clearly see, because when I look at my situation now, I feel like I feel like I feel whole, but I feel like I trained and enjoyed and chose to make her a source of joy and happiness in my life, to enjoy her joy, to enjoy her who she is, to just enjoy so much of what she is, and that I, in a way, I guess that almost became so important to me that I didn't feel whole without it. I think that maybe something like that, and I think I did that because I wanted to make sure. I mean, in the beginning, she wanted marriage and was more committed to me, and it's like I was like, I need to be 100% congruent to that. I need to be so committed that I know that I will be absolutely there for the rest of my life if we do this. And it was a goal to get there. And so it was a conscious process of building that element of perception into me. And then I can see now, perhaps, and I'm interested in your feedback on these thoughts, but how that literally became a condition that then I felt unwhole without it, without the ability to appreciate and enjoy her and spend time with her. And which is kind of interesting how these things go in circles.
And that's the definition of attachment.
Yep. It became
You're
that.
the source of my joy. If you're the source of my joy, certainly the truth of joy, which is living as a human being, isn't available to me. You might remember a song a few decades back, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. If I don't show up as love and I think I've got to get it to you, I'm never going to be able to fully experience it or experience fulfillment. Once I've got that, once you've got that, and we decide, oh, okay, so let's create relationship, then we can share that fulfillment together. But each of us has to show up whole to do that. And wholeness, I would offer, comes out of your relationship with the active presence of love, not out of someone else is going to make this happen for me.
Yeah, the interesting nuance for me is that I always felt like I was responsible for feeling the joy that I felt as towards her. And my goals about that, I can see that I wanted to continue to express and enjoy the expression of divinity and the beauty of God with her, and that I felt like I was obviously the only one who could feel, create, or generate joy in me. But I set myself up so that I felt that as towards her, and I enjoyed all these things about her. And then when that wouldn't be possible, then I would feel, that's when I felt such a lack or an empty space that then I was not whole anymore and therefore attached. And I think that what's important for me as I'm speaking to you is that I feel like there was part of the reason for doing that was probably born out of some kind of insecurity that I would not be able to be a committed enough partner without doing that. It's like, why would I need to make that effort? Why would I need to say I need to make her the most important and the person that I enjoy being with so much that it's just, there's nothing else I want, no one else I'll ever want, I know this is what I want, and that I think probably came out of some kind of insecurity that like, if I'm going to be in this committed place, that I'm going to do that better than I've ever done it before, because I've never been able to sustain that this long. And
that phrase is a key.
Something like that.
Better than I've ever done it before.
Okay, help me.
To me, would indicate the possibility that you're familiar with the codependence principle and the codependent messages that we get. And to me, that would reflect the possibility that there's some kind of a message that probably came from power person about how you'll never be good enough. For you, even on your own.
Well, I definitely feel like I'm sure that message is in me. There's no question about that. But in this context, I feel like layers of guilt and feeling bad about not being able to be what other relationships have wanted me to be for them. When someone else has felt about me like I now feel about her, more or less, it's like I couldn't get there, or I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to I don't have it in me to genuinely feel that. And I felt bad about that.
Go for it, Jeannie.
I think so.
What popped up for me while you were talking just there, Doug, was that because of the guilt and all of the, I've never been able to hold this relationship before and all that, that perhaps instead of just allowing it to be, that you're like straining and struggling to make it be.
Well, I was, without a question, Jeannie, deciding consciously, I'm going to make this become, I'm going to take responsibility for aligning my thinking and my perceptions and my heart so that I am absolutely going to be able to be committed here and hold that commitment. And part of that process was a cultivation of letting go of anything I didn't like and being able to just appreciate everything about her more deeply. And that led to more and more, and I was doing that in part in the beginning just to get there, and then it began to be, I think, something I also tried to do because I thought it would help hold us together when I felt like the relationship was being threatened. And so you're saying that just to, help me more with what you're trying to help me understand.
Well,
but I think it
sort
is
of like
just relax.
Yeah, Michael uses the example of being love, and that we are, like prayer is setting a trap for God. It's like the antenna on the roof. If it's aligned properly, it just captures, that channel that you're wanting to see, and it puts forth a clear picture. But if you strain and struggle and try to force the antenna to go a certain way, and you bend the arms and all this, trying to make it grab that channel, you might get there and you might not, but you would get there easier and have a clearer picture if you were just in alignment. That was the picture that came to me as I was saying, that instead of just letting it flow and letting it happen and just being love, that the strain and struggle to try to force it was actually pushing it further away.
Yeah, well, it did. I think it did. It probably did. The irony is that I thought it would help, and the part of the reason that I would justify that doing that, or felt that was necessary for me, is because I felt like I was a bent antenna and I had to get it straightened out. Like the personality that I had was not based on experience capable of feeling confident about making a commitment like that and knowing that it would be solid in me all the way through, that I wouldn't be where I had been in the past, in particular with my marriage, where I'm in a situation because someone else wants to be in it, and then I'm trying to make it work for me, but really I never wanted to be. It's not alignment for me. It's not really what I wanted to be doing, or people want to be with you, and you don't necessarily want to be that committed and forever with them. That sort of thing in my past. It's like, how else am I gonna, if I don't consciously intervene and change who I am, how am I gonna become the man that I want to be, who can be competent in holding the space of love and love as towards that I want to hold, to honor this relationship and to honor my commitment in it. So no, I did not just let it happen at all. I went after it internally. And yet the irony that I'm seeing now is that also became my dysfunction and my my non-wholeness within myself, in a sense. And I think it all roots probably from some kind of insecurity. That's the thing to really understand.
Yeah, I think attachment, if you really look, comes from some sort of perceived deficiency.
Yeah, well, that broad. Yeah.
And letting go of the attachment can open the space for whatever the underlying energy is to float to the surface for healing.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Yeah.
So there's a simple exercise.
So say the last part again. Okay, so I'm writing it down too. Attachment comes from some form of
attachment deficiency.
Deficiency, and then you said the part that I didn't get fully is how opening what doing what allows for that.
When I let go of it's the attachment, the focus out there that keeps whatever the deficiency energy is that I need to resolve hidden under the surface. So letting go of the attachment, it's like, there's a grip with attachment that keeps something hidden under the surface. When you let go of the attachment, that creates the space for whatever this perceived deficiency is to surface and be worked through.
Yeah, that's it. Good. Exactly. Okay. Surface.
So there's a simple exercise that we've developed over the years that can be a really powerful way of letting go of those attachments, and it's a pretty simple and straightforward to do. I've seen some people do it, and it hasn't made much of a difference in their lives, and I've seen other people do it, and it's changed everything about their lives and/or about relationships. So if you'd like to, we could walk through that exercise, and actually anybody that's listening, if you've got, some sort of an attachment thing going on somewhere in your life, it's like the attachment that keeps the trauma cycling and circling and hidden. So if you'd like to do that release exercise, we can do it. It's pretty simple and straightforward.
Yes.
Okay, let's go for it. So then what I'm going to offer some instructions, and we'll utilize your circumstance as the example, but anybody else who'd like to do the exercise, if you just replace the words with whatever your own personal situation is, and just see what happens. See what when we complete it, just take a minute in stillness and just see what floats to the surface. Very much like with the forgiveness process, when a goal is canceled, all of a sudden one drops into places that previously have been hidden. So, and we've just got a minute left, so we're going to have to roll with it. It only takes a minute to do, but or if we need to, we can pick it up and complete it tomorrow. Actually, we're getting kind of locked in on time. This show's going to cut us off in less than a minute, so I don't think we've really got time to work through it. But if you want to start out tomorrow's show with it, let's go for it.
All right, sir. That's what we'll do.
All right.
Thank
in the
you.
meantime, we'll hold the space.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Lots of love and blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. And tomorrow we'll start out with this attachment exercise. And anybody that's ready, if there's something in your life that you feel like you're attached to, if you'd like to join us and do that, then we'll start out with that in the show tomorrow. In the meantime, have the best year you have of your eternal life. It's an awesome